If you're thinking about moving to Branson, you need to understand this first because what people expect life here to be like and what it's actually like are two very different things. There are things that people love about Branson, but there's also things nobody talks about until after you move here. So in this video, I'm breaking down the real truth about living in Branson, Missouri.
Hey, I'm Jason Yeager with Great Branson Homes, and on this channel we talk about what it's really like living, working, and moving to the Branson area. Not just the highlights, but the stuff that you're really going to need to know before making a decision. Now, before we go any further, I do want to say something and just be very clear. I'm not here to tell anybody where they should or they shouldn't live. And I'm definitely not making any recommendations on anything based on demographics, anything like that, okay? My goal is pretty simple. I want to take publicly available information, combine it with some real local experience, and then put that together to deliver to you guys so that you can make an educated decision based on what's gonna fit your lifestyle best, all right? Let's dive into it. All right, so let's just start with one of the biggest questions that people have, and that's crime. Now, when people ask me, is Branson safe? I think what they're really trying to ask me is, what does the day-to-day lifestyle actually feel like? And the answer to that really is, it depends, because you've got two vastly different worlds. You've got this major tourism area, right? And then you've got all the areas where the residential areas where people actually live in. And those are two very different experiences. So instead of trying to give you my opinion, I'm gonna show you some actual data and then we'll walk you through how to interpret it. Now, this is where a lot of people will misread what they're looking at, so stick around. All right, I'm just gonna go over to my computer and I'll show you what I mean here.
All right, so just doing a general search here of crime in Branson. Let's first tackle what AI says about the crime in Branson. To understand crime in Branson, consider the following points. Branson has a relatively low crime rate compared to national averages. Most reported crimes are property related, such as theft and burglary. Violent crime rates are significantly lower than in larger urban areas, and the local police department actively engages in community policing efforts. Seasonal tourism can lead to fluctuations in crime rates during peak times. Residents are encouraged to report suspicious activities to maintain safety. Now, over here on this other tab, I've got crimegrade.org is a good map that I like to look at the overall kind of the bird's eye view of where crime happens in our area. And you can see like green is going to be like the safest. And then as you get into yellow, orange, and the further red, you get the more F rating. A is green, A plus, C is about yellow, and F here. So you can see Springfield area up here is about a yellow. And then as you go down, Stone and Taney County are right here in kind of a green and greenish yellow-ish area down here. Overall crime grade for Missouri is D, looks like here. And then what we can do actually is let's search. Can we go crime by area, crime by zip code? Perfect. Let's do that. So I'm going to do 65616. It's going to load this map here. Okay. So you can see all of the area of Branson. Hollister is down here. And then you've got Branson West out further this way. But the downtown historical area of Branson seems to be where the majority of the crime that you'll see is happening. And then you get into like the orange, it gets a little lighter here. On the Hollister side over here, it's got like a C grading over here. And then these green areas, northeast and just on the south side here, on Taneycomo, this is where a lot of the residential areas lie on the downtown area over here. And there's some even over here too, the older homes that are down closer to the historic district. And the hospitals are down this way as well. But you can see as you go into the strip here, okay, this is where some of the residential areas lie over here and on down into this way, down Acacia Club. This is the Hollister side over here. And then I don't know what's going on with Point Royale and Fall Creek area down here where all the nightly rentals and the golf course community down here. This tripped me out when I saw this. There must be a lot of reports happening down in the Fall Creek and Point Royale area. Bless her heart. Skyview Drive over here overlooking the lake has got like a D rating. And then over here on Indian Point, it's looking pretty good over here. Down towards the end over here, gets a little orange. That's the overall crime. Let's look at violent crime. Violent crimes. Here's a map of that. And then let's look at the property crime. Yeah, and then it gets really red here. And that's kind of coincides with kind of what I see from that AI search is that, yes, I mean, the majority of the crime that gets reported around here is the property crime, theft and burglary, because we have so many tourists that are from out of town that are shopping. They're inside the theaters watching shows. Their cars are unattended to. We are not known to have like really great security going around into all of these parking lots that are, packed with cars during the show schedule times. And then certainly down here at the landing area where the majority of the shopping happens throughout the main season, as you can see, that kind of reflects what we normally see. Um, so I hope that kind of helps put it into perspective. This map below shows violent crime per 1,000 uh, Branson residents. And then, yeah, same thing for the property crime. It's per 1,000 residents. Well, we only have a little over 11, 12,000 people that actually live in Branson proper. Everybody else typically lives outside of the Branson city limits. So we get, 10 million plus people that come through here every year. The amount of crimes reported is going to be significantly higher versus the amount of residents, the capita of people that actually live here. So I think even on average, for our little area, we tend to reflect online even worse than it maybe even seems because of the fact that we have such a high tourism area here. So hope that helps.
So when you look at that, you're not just seeing crime, you're seeing activity. You're seeing where people are going, you're seeing where people are interacting, where things are happening. And that really leads into the next thing here, which is seasonality. Branson is a very seasonal town, okay? You've got peak seasons here when the business is up, traffic is up, everything's busy, business is booming. And then you've got the slower seasons where everything really comes down significantly. And that affects more than just the tourism. It affects jobs, income stability, traffic patterns, of course, and, just an overall pace of life. All right, I'm out here on the strip right now, actually, and I think this is what most people kind of think about when they think about Branson is, the busyness, the traffic, all the people everywhere, but here's what most people don't realize is that it's not like this all year. It's really, it's drastically different during the off season. Depending on when you're here, it can look completely different. And I think that shift can actually affect more than I think people expect. Now compare this to like a typical neighborhood just a few minutes away. It's way less traffic, quiet, completely different pace. And this is really what the day in and day out lifestyle looks like for the most part here. Now, this is something that I definitely did not consider moving from DFW to Branson, was how drastically different my paycheck was going to be in the off season. A lot of people are on unemployment here. They have to because there's just not enough jobs to go around during the winter season, especially if you're like working for Silver Dollar City. When they shut down in the winter months, everybody, not just park employees, there's a lot of other industries that are dependent on the tourism season. And so they will only hire people on a seasonal rate, on a seasonal basis. And then you're having to file for unemployment. I would say over half the town probably is on unemployment for January, February, even March and April, well into, ramping up towards May. And that was just something that I was not budgeting my paychecks earlier. It's just a strange town to have, a paycheck 9 months out of the year, but you got to stretch that out combined with some unemployment pay, which is, nothing compared to what I was normally getting paid as an entertainer in Branson. And there's other industries, that have the same problem, right? So that is definitely something, if you're retired and you're not working, this isn't going to really apply to you. But, if you don't have a job in some other place like Springfield or something that's going to keep you employed full time and you're moving to work around Branson, a lot of businesses will go to a skeleton crew. Like when you go out to eat, don't be surprised if there's like one cook and one manager, and that is that's it, right? So your wait is maybe not, well, I don't know, you might not have to wait all that much because there's, not that many people trying to get in. But even with that, as few people trying to eat in one place, there's just not that many people there to serve, a lot of the places just end up putting up on the marquee, hey, thanks for a great 2026 season. We'll see you in 2027 or whatever, and so just knowing that half the town really kind of goes dark during that time is strange. And now the Branson Landing and like all of that area downtown, I would say that's probably been maintaining a lot better than 20 years ago. The landing's been around for 20 years, so I'm very impressed when I go down to the landing, even during the off season, and seeing how busy it is. It's very refreshing to see that, but it definitely is not an indicator of the rest of the town. It's a drastic difference. The other pro, obviously, is being able to get anywhere you want across. You can use 76 at your discretion, anytime, anywhere during the off season. You have no issues getting around. So there is one plus. Now, this is something that catches, I think, a lot of people off guard until after they move here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, this is something that doesn't get really talked about a whole lot, but it's part of the reality of being here. And that is that with so many properties being used as nightly rentals, it creates a lot of pressure on the local housing, the affordable housing here. And so that being said, a lot of people end up having to get creative on where they choose to live. So what ends up happening is you've got this big gap between what properties cost and what the local incomes will actually support. Now, this is where things get a little more complex. Okay, this is not just about pricing, but it's about availability and what options actually exist for people living and working here full time. And that's going to lead right into the next thing, which I think really needs to be talked about too, is income disparity. Branson is built around a tourism economy, which means a large portion of the workforce is really geared around the service industry, hospitality, retail, entertainment. And those jobs don't necessarily always scale with the cost of living. What you end up with is this natural gap between the tourism economy and the local workforce. And this connects with something that I think a lot of people don't realize until after they've spent more time here. Now, I want to talk about something honestly, but also responsibly, and that's drug issues. Now, this isn't something that's unique to Branson, obviously. It's something that is very prevalent in rural America, especially in the Ozarks here in Missouri. And it's tied to a lot of factors. There's economic differences, the rural geography here, very limited resources. Now, that doesn't mean that it's everywhere, okay? And it's definitely not something that's, tied to one specific or any specific community, really. But it is part of the larger regional reality. And this is where perception and reality can maybe start to blur a little bit. All right, now let's shift gears for a second and let's talk about something that directly impacts Branson's future. The Branson area, and especially the surrounding counties, they tend to lean more conservative. And local decisions, especially when it comes to like planning and zoning, which has been a big hot topic here in 2026, they can have a big impact on how the area grows. And so that's kind of the biggest debate right now between local people here is, the people that are wanting the growth and people who don't want the growth, people who want to keep Branson small, keep, not just Branson proper, but all of the other areas around Branson, all of the small towns that are around Branson. They're all, a lot of people are coming in from other states, and you get a lot of local talk within our area down here on social media, just about their opinions on growth, right? And it's not just residential growth, but commercial growth. I'm not, sure about what all this buzz is about the data centers in the Midwest. I'm up north of us in, south of Springfield. Maybe that might be a concern, but certainly I don't think that would be much of a concern down around the Branson area. I don't see anybody putting a data center in around Table Rock Lake for sure. So I want to stick to just having you understand that the debates on what gets built, where it gets built, and how fast things develop, they all shape what it's like living here long term. And this definitely does not show up when people are here visiting. Which brings us to the overall lifestyle here. Because at the end of the day, visiting Branson is very different than living in Branson. Visitors here, they experience the restaurants, the nightlife, the entertainment, the lack of nightlife. We'll talk about that in another video. But the daily life here is much more about the routine, the community, the overall pace of the area. So this is probably a much better example of what Branson everyday life is actually like. Slower, quieter. And honestly, I think this is what people usually end up getting adjusted to. It's just very different from whenever you're visiting here. So when you're thinking about moving here, you really got to look past the vacation version of Branson, and you got to understand what it's actually like living here day in and day out. All right, so the key takeaway for this whole video, I think no place is perfect, right? Every place has crime. Every place has drugs. Every place has, political leanings. Every place has, different neighborhoods, different styles of living depending on where you live, right? Everything's got pros and the cons. And I hope this video kind of sheds some light on all of that here in Branson, but I think you'll find that it's really no different from the town that you're living in currently right now. Or maybe it is, I don't know. Point is, no place is perfect. Everything has trade-offs, right? The key really, I think, is understanding what those trade-offs are and deciding what matters most to you. Because obviously what works for one person may not work for someone else. All right, so I'm curious, what are your biggest concerns about moving to Branson? Drop it down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. And if you are considering moving to Branson, be sure to grab our all-new Branson Relocation Guide for 2026. I'll drop a link for it right down here in the description. And you can book a Zoom with me if you've got other questions that I haven't answered in this video or in other videos. I've got a playlist with all kinds of other great information about relocating to Branson. And if you're interested in short-term rentals, I've got a whole playlist for you to check out as well. All right, that's going to take care of it for today, guys. I'm Jason with Great Branson Homes. Follow for the local truth and not the hype.